think Amy from our team is just going to give me permissions to kind of be the host of this session. Mark Cascarelli will be facilitating, but just so that you guys know, I'll be kind of doing the note-taking in the draft document that we'll be working out of.
You should be set, Erin.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Amy.
You're welcome.
See ya.
Bye.
Ready? While we just kind of wait for everyone to populate the meeting. As I said, hi Mark. We'll begin shortly. Mark, you can just let me know when you're ready for me to, well, no, we'll wait. We'll wait for the presentation and then I'll share the document after.
Sure. Great. I think we're just waiting for Brett was on this group. I didn't see Doug at the plenary here, so.
He's coming a little later, I think.
Doug is, Bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm here.
Brett.
Mark, how are you?
Hey, Brett. Okay, I think we've got who we're going to have, at least for the start of the meeting. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first subgroup meeting on legislation. Julie laid out a nice process. Pleased to be with you this morning. You know, I have a background in this arena and feel lucky to be part of this engagement. Recognizing we got here, unfortunately, through some not so great circumstances, but the fact is there's a lot of momentum behind this to move forward. You're all obviously respected individuals in your field, and so I look forward to engaging you. And fortunately, like Julie pointed out, the ASDSO peer review, they did an excellent job in carrying the ball a long way down the field for us. Good starting point. We have Erin Lammers from PSC. She's going to provide a little support on the technology side for this old dinosaur. Better safe than sorry. So I appreciate having Erin with us this morning. We do have Mario that's going to give a short presentation set up for this category. The recommendations obviously have been laid out for you. I hope you've been able to spend some time with them, been giving some thought to them, how they look, additional thoughts, what's missing, and how they might be modified. And so we'll get to that. Before I turn it over to Mario, I'd just like to pause for a minute. Are there any questions or comments, benefit of the group or otherwise? Sounding okay? All right, great. With that, Mario, I understand you'll be giving a brief presentation. We have 45 minutes, so we had planned for 15 minutes for this segment and then 30 minutes. This group has a little easier task, and when I say easier, that's relative. Some of you are sitting on the budgeting and program management group as well, and there's about 45 recommendations there. We'll talk in a little more detail how we're going to manage that animal, but I think we've got about 12 or 13 recommendations in this group, a little bit more approachable. So no questions, it sounds like. Mario, are you ready to offer a brief background?
Yes, I am. I just want to make sure that I have the technology working for me here. So I would like to share my screen. And let's see if that works. Can you see my screen?
No.
Not yet.
Okay, about now.
Here we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Here we go, great.
So let me introduce myself. My name is Mario Fusco. I'm the supervisor for the hydrological studies and dam safety unit. And in the slides, you have my contact information. I don't know what's happening here. I see what I've been saying is being typed in the bottom of the screen. I don't know if that's what you guys are seeing also. I thought was Cortana. I tried to sign off Cortana.
Oh no, that's all right, Mario.
That's all right.
I think it's an advanced setting possibly that we're using for this, just in case people are, I don't know, taking notes or they just want to be able to I can read also what you're saying. So apologies if that's a little odd.
Okay, well, but
right.
that was working before when I tried PowerPoint. So, okay, let's continue then. The statute, the dam safety program administer is the Part 307. That's inland lake and inland lake levels, and Part 315 dam safety, and both are part of the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act of 1994, as amended. People say NERPA. So let's move to the next one. As a background, I just want to show this map with the dam, Michigan's in dam, and they are different colors. Some of them are regulated in the Part 315, others Part 307. Some of them are regulated by both. And also you have there Part 307, MOU. Those are MOU that the department, EGLE, has with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. And this database was in progress or in development before the failures of the Edenview and some for them, and came live just after the failure. Just a second here. Move you guys to the other side here. Okay, Part 307. A lot of people are more familiar with Part 315 and not familiar with Part 307. And basically, Part 307 process starts when the homeowners on a lake do a petition to the county, and the county do a petition to the civil court or circuit court to the establish of the lake level. Usually, EGLE doesn't have much participation. We review. They are supposed to submit a plan, and we review the plan for the lake level establishment. And once that's done, it's up to them to set up the assessment district for the fund for the construction, inspection, maintenance, and repair of the dams. Once the dam is there, it's required by the department for them to provide us every 3 years with the inspection. Contrary to the Part 315, there is no hydraulic capacity for the spillway. And one thing that people don't realize is that if the report indicates there is a need of repair, the department, EGLE, shall conduct an inspection to confirm the findings of the report and may require the repair or replacement of the dam if the publicly safety or natural resources are endangered by the risk of failure of the dam. So there is no permitting authority under Part 307. However, some of the permitting is done through Part 301, inland lake and streams. And there is no need also for us to approve the plans and specification prior to the constructions. This Part 307, there is assessment of penalties to anyone who unlawfully tampers with the legal lake level or control structure. And failing to comply with Section 30722 with the inspection requirements or falsely presenting dam conditions is guilty of misconduct in office.
Can we ask questions at this point or not?
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the compliance level on the dam safety inspections every 3 years? Do you have an idea of how many of the 307 dams, these are generally low head dams, right?
Correct.
But what is the compliance rate?
No of them. Some of them are regulated under Part 315.
Understood. But under
Okay.
307, you require a dam inspection the Act requires dam inspection every 3 years. What is the compliance rate?
It's very good. It's not an issue for us, 307.
Okay.
We focus our attention more to part 315. So it seems like the compliance is very good. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, it does. I just was curious as to what but when they comply, did they comply to the circuit court or they comply to you?
Both. There is some
okay.
court cases that some homeowners complain that the delegate authority is not maintaining the levels as they should. And our Attorney General office gets involved in those court cases. And sometimes we may have to go there testify. What's the impact of lowering and sometimes is a very small amount of variation from the lake level. And usually our role is to testify if that's going to cause any kind of environmental problem. And sometimes people complain about ridiculous low variations from the level. Okay, can I go ahead?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, part 315. Part 315 establish the minimum safety and spillway capacity requirements for dams that are 6 feet and impoundment at least 5 acres. So those are and, not or. And FERC regulated dams are not regulated by Part 315. Part 315 mandates that the regular inspection is made for every 3 years for the high hazard potential dams, every 4 years for significant hazard dams, and every 5 years for low hazard potential dams. ASDSO peer review is recommending these to change to 1 year for the high hazard potential dams, 2 years for the significant hazard potential dams, and keep the low hazard dams potential dams for every 5 years. There is a requirement for the owners of the high and significant hazard potential dams to prepare and keep up-to-date emergency action plan. Emergency action plan is a plan that says what actions needs to be taken in case of emergency. Michigan statute does not require that an inundation plan be part of the emergency action plan as long as there is a list of the properties that are going to be impacted in case the dam fails.
Say that again. It doesn't require if what?
If the EAP has a list of properties with addresses, owners,
okay,
that's going to be impacted in case the dam fail.
And let me ask the same question. What is the compliance rate of the 3, 4, and 5 year engineering inspections?
They are for the high hazard potential dams and for significant hazard potential dams, the compliance is good. Because of the lack of staff, there are some low hazard potential dams that has not been in compliance. And this year, we send letters to the owners of the low hazard potential dams. All of them, we clean out our inventory and locate the owner addresses and send a letter, a reminder letter that they need to comply and provide us the inspection report for their dams. To be honest with you, there are dams that we don't even know if it's still there. because the compliance along the years was our low priority because of the lack of staff.
And what's the penalty for non-compliance in the statute?
I think there is a penalty, a dollar amount, and I'll have to go back to the statute. But we try to contact the owners and try to get voluntary compliance.
Hey, Bill, I think you speak to some good questions here. And what we may do is follow up with Mario and get some firmer figures here. I mean, when we say compliance is very good, I mean, is that 8 out of 10? You know, I mean, whatever the number, I'd like to have a little better feel for just what that means among the different categories. So I'll plan to follow up on that. And then Mario, also be a little clear on what those penalties are. Obviously, one of the challenges is that there's really been no teeth in enforcement, which I think Bill is speaking to here. And so we want to focus a little bit of time there from this group, and that will certainly or likely to impact the recommendations that come from it. Mario, we've got just a few minutes left. I don't know how many slides you have, but for the sake of the discussion that needs to happen by this subgroup, if you could move through, save any additional questions for the end of the presentation, and then we'll engage the full group.
Okay, I have 13 slides that I can move very fast through them, and I'll try to speak faster also.
You're doing good, Mario.
Okay, so here's another figure for that spatial database that we developed with the hazard potential dams. The majority of the dams in Michigan are low hazard potential dams. The spillway capacity. Depending of the hazard potential, there is different requirements. For the low hazard potential dams is a 100-year flood. For the significant hazard potential dams is 200-year flood. And the high hazard potential dams depend of the height of the dam. It may be the 200-year flood or the half PMF if the dam is higher than 40 feet. If there is a flood of record that exceeded the design flood for the dam, then that becomes the new regulatory design flood. Different regulate activities that we regulate under Part 15 are the construction of new dams, enlargement of a dam or impoundment, and also alteration of dam. And that could be, we may say that enlargement is alteration, so I think that's the same category as the other one. Also, we do the removals. Part 315 does not prioritize the removals. Our statute is clear, saying that if there is a deficiency found on the dam, the owner has the choice to repair the dam or remove the dam. Part 315 dam safety also permitted abandonment of a dam, and abandonment in this case means by the statute means modification of the dam, making it not being regulated under Part 315 anymore. It doesn't mean that the owner may abandon the dam and not have no liability over it. I think with the liability over the dam, ownership carries over with the ownership of the land. And reconstruction of a failed dam. The only thing that I wanted to let it be clear here that if the dam fails like the Edenville Dam failed, the dam owner has 1 year to provide us a permit, a complete permit. Otherwise, that construction of the dam or reconstruction is be considered as the construction of a new dam, and we're going to have more requirements. Additional authorities. Usually this is a response to some deficiencies found during inspection done by us or by the dam owner engineer. And usually we try to contact them by a letter. And for cases that we have no responses from the dam owner, we have the authority to enter the private property to inspection. And the violations, if we notice there is a violation, are handled by issuing a notice of violation and also going back to the bill question, they are subject to civil penalties. Emergency orders give us the authority to take some actions if we determine that the dam's imminent danger of failure. The dam owner has the right to have an administrative hearing within 14 days from issuing the order, challenging the order. And if the department undertake the necessary actions, we can try to recover the costs later through the civil court. So like I said before, there is a lot of non-regulated dams in Michigan, and usually those are regulated under Part 301, inland lake and streams. So the thing here to notice that there is no requirement for engineering inspections and no specific safety or hydraulic capacity requirements. Rooms for improvement.
Just a quick question. What would be the difference between the Part 301s? Is it just size?
Those are the dams that are lower than 6 feet in height, and the impoundment behind the dam is less than 5 acres.
Doesn't meet the requirements for the...
Yeah, they don't meet the requirement to be regulated in the Part 315. Okay. So here are the peer review recommendations. They want to increase the frequency of the inspections for the high and significant hazard potential dams. They would like us to require periodic in-depth engineering evaluations. And I don't think they specify the time. That will depend on the size of the dam, I think, or the importance or the impact of if the dam fails. So I even questioned that question when they did their presentation. So we would say probably every 5 years, or for the less important dams, every 10 years. I think seems to be a good number. Also, they would like us to increase the design flood or the hydraulic capacity requirements of high and significant hazard potential dams. As a comparison, when we took authority under Edenville Dam, the state requirement for that dam was half PMF, while the FERC requirement was the full PMF. They would like us to take progressive compliance enforcement action, and there are several other recommendations. But overall, they would like us to be more in line with the FEMA model dam safety program.
When we talk about PMF, is that 500-year flood?
No, that's the probable flood.
And what probability are we talking about? Current frequency? PMF doesn't mean anything to person.
No, it is not a frequency. It's the maximum, probable maximum flood that's caused by PMP, the probable maximum precipitation. So there is a whole methodology about how to determine what is the PMP, and then we do the calculation to find what's the PMF.
So my quick follow-up on that, plus the design, and I know we'll get into it, but with the design being 100-year, 200, or the probable maximum, we got to think about whether those are appropriate, but how often and who does the calculations of those? So, I mean, I know in road crossing replacements, my 100-year design is now different than it was 10 years ago. I got to build a structure bigger for that 100 years. So the 100-year shifts, but in this program, who's doing that hydraulic analysis? What data? How current is it in that regard?
Yeah, I can say about the Edenville Dam, that was done by Spicer Group, and we reviewed we have our hydrology in the staff for the hydrologic study and dam safety unit, and usually it's reviewed by us.
Okay. Well, for later, that's just a concept is that, you know, a lot of these were built maybe for whatever the 100-year was about 100 years ago. And the 100-year now is not the 100 years from 100 years ago. So we got to think about whether we want to change the design, but the actual number and when that gets calculated with current data, or, you know, is it a 10-year, 30-year, 50-year average from this date backwards? Really a pretty big difference in what that design number comes out to be. And like
I agree with you, Brian. We should use
I mean, Mario, you do the hydrology.
Yeah, I agree with you. We should use the most current data for precipitation to be able to calculate that number.
Yeah, and again, Brian, you pointed out there'll be an opportunity when we look at the specific recommendations to start making those observations, areas of modification. Mario, if you could wrap it up here, we're a little beyond where we wanted to be. So I just want to allow ample time for discussion and a look at the recommendations.
Okay, so the next slide, there's a link there to the model dam safety program. And I'm not going to read what's in the slide, but you guys can read. The good thing about the model program, they provide examples of those topics. And many states already in the country have modeled their dam safety program based on the FEMA model program. So
I have one additional question. I just want to understand.
Go ahead, Bill.
The state constitution says that county board of commissioners must approve dams. How do you guys work with it with the county boards of commissioners?
You're talking about Part 307 dams? Because I'm not familiar with that. What statute you're referring here?
It's language in the Constitution, which I should have grabbed.
Okay, I'm not aware of that, so okay. I don't think there is a need for approval, but if it's in the Constitution is the law of the land, right? Mm-hmm. We should follow the Constitution.
I think that's also in PA 185 might be where that says if you've got a lake level, maybe it's only in 307. It doesn't go through a county board, but if there's still permitting and such, that's necessarily the final approval step.
Yeah, that's why I asked Bill if just 307 or 315 dams.
I don't know. I just remember the broad language in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Okay, we can get that clarified, Bill.
Okay.
So let's move. Aaron's going to pull up the recommendations and let's have a first look at those. These are, this document's going to look familiar. It was provided to you previously ahead of the meeting. If you want to unshare your screen, Mario, I think that's how it works.
I'm trying to find the right button here.
There we go. You're okay. Who's got
notes? These are notes.
Yep. Sorry, give me 1 second, Mark. I'll pull it up. Oh, I see what's going on. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry, pulled up the wrong one. Okay.
Well, we have a moment. Mario, thank you for the presentation. Of course, you'll be with us and continue to serve as a technical expert. I'm sure there's going to be some ongoing questions here as we get into the discussion.
Thank you, Mark.
I do have a quick question for Mario while we're waiting. Back to the PMF, PNP. So that still has to be based on a rain event. So I'm still curious which rain event we're talking about. You can't do hydrology without picking a rain event. And I'm also wondering,
well,
totally saturated soils. To me, that's what a probable maximum would include, but I'm not familiar with that calc. And
well, I think, Evan, more than the precipitation itself is based on the temperature on the atmosphere, because it's the maximum capacity of the atmosphere of holding water.
Yeah.
So there is, it's just like the saturation of the atmosphere is about 100%, and we'll have a precipitation based on that factor.
Right. And then what about the soils? Does it assume full saturation, or is this conditions? Or?
I will have to look at methodology, Evan, to be honest with you. I'm not the one that does those calculations, but we follow
some of the design stuff too. But
yeah, we follow the methodology by the Corps of Engineers.
Ah, okay.
All right, does that look like it's up, Mark?
Yes.
You guys see in the legislation and authority, excuse me, recommendations?
Yeah.
Everyone seeing those?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. So yeah, so you'll kind of see as Mark talked, or as, excuse me, as Julie talked about, the focus and composition and the charge kind of is up at the top. And we will start, you can go ahead, Mark, however we want to start. But
sure. Yeah, I think because we have 12 of them, I'm going to assume that you've spent some time in reading the recommendations, and maybe in a triage fashion here. We can work through adopt as is. We can adopt with modification, and then Bill, to your earlier question about what's missing, I think if there's some topics here that we want to go ahead and put on the list that are related to recommendations not here, let's go ahead and start thinking about those. That's my proposal to you. It's your document and your work here. So and unless there's input or questions or a better way to do this, I would just say let's take it from the top. But let me pause for a minute and hear from you.
It works.
Okay. The only other thing I might ask, and not to kind of lead the discussion here, is Mario, as a staff person, clearly would know the program and these recommendations better than anyone. And maybe at the end, Mario, or as we're working through these, if you have any particular comments, whether it's technical or based on your experience and where the rubber meets the road, I think it would benefit the discussion. So don't be constrained on chiming in and clarifying or sharing with us your views on some of the language here. So with that, why don't we take it from the top here? Legislation and authority, of course, the Dam Safety Program, DSP, this is their recommendation 2020-01A. Related to revision or adoption of laws and rules to number 1, provide liability disclaimer statement for the state agencies personnel. And I presume that to mean as you are a regulator and out there inspecting these or whatever the case, that you're held harmless from some of that work with the applicants. But I don't know if you, Mario, want to clarify that before we talk about it, or just is it sort of self-evident the way it's written?
Yeah, that's my interpretation also, Mark.
Okay. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I would say that, I probably want deeper discussion of the exact nature of those liability disclaimers. I mean, the public certainly in getting and funding engineers to look at things want to know that people stand behind those. I will say in a truncated fashion that I've had several past experiences with dam drawdown permits where the permission granted by staff was excessive and not based on ecological damages, and sedimentation resulted. And then it really leaves neither the dam owner or the staff responsible for having given that authorization. So I with that said, I think I would love to kind of understand the nature of this before kind of saying universally, no liability in their work.
Okay.
Hey, Mark, this is Amy Lowndes. I am the Field Operations Support Section Manager for Eagle, and I know a lot of the people here in the meeting, but want to introduce myself anyways. So before we continue on, I want to mention, so these recommendations come from ASDSO's comparison to the national model for the program. So they're basically, by giving this recommendation, they're saying this is the national model for that. And I think, Brian, we can provide more information. I think the issue for us in the past has been when we do compliance and enforcement, often people will start personally suing agency staff. And so we spend a lot of time trying to work through those personal lawsuits while we're trying to do compliance and enforcement. So I think that's what they're trying to address, but we can provide some more information on that.
I can contact the ASDSO and ask for exemption from other states that have that disclosure statement or disclaimer, if that helps.
Yeah, I mean, I mentally inserted the word limited in front of liability. I presumed that it would be something that was conditional and described certain situations where you were held totally harmless and other situations where whatever, based on the level of decision, that there was some, you know, culpability for at least the agency. So maybe that's some of the difference too, whether it's personal or versus, you know, the agency in some of these areas that are going to be gray, and maybe it is appropriate to have some limits.
Okay, good. That's helpful input. So we could say sort of like at a high level, generally, there's no disagreement with this. We need some clarification, devil's in the details here in the specific language and how much, you know, liability is limited. Is that fair?
Fair.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. Thank you. Let's keep moving here. Number 2, require permits for existing unpermitted dams to operate and maintain these dams in a safe condition, to annually report on maintenance, operation, and engineering investigations. I mean, clearly this is sort of somewhat general at a high level. Mario did a nice job of sort of parsing out the different dams and how they're regulated a little bit differently based on size and some other parameters here. But
how many unpermitted dams are out there that are there any that would require, if it were constructed today, a 315 permit?
Bill, we're going to have to look at our inventory, try to find out what's the date they are built. I assume that the vast majority of the dams didn't have a permit for the construction of the dam.
So there may be a number of those out there.
Correct.
so
Yeah, I would say that this is one that probably, you know, deserves to be broken down into a couple pieces. You got, you know, the question of whether this is trying to know the dams that should be under 315 that you're not aware of. And then there's the question of, is, you know, should we be doing something for dams that would not fall under Part 315 that are, you know, 5 feet tall? And then I think, you know, there's also a concept here, and maybe this is more of a adding into later, but, you know, this is just for safety. Our scope is a little bit bigger, and I think a bit of a discussion to be had about all of the dams that, well, all of them in their regards to impacts that they cause, rather than only narrowly safety. So most of these were built before the Inland Basin Stream Acts. They really don't have any that provision has no bearing. We're really without much bearing other than 315 for the mass collection of our dams. So this one seems to be like a good one to maybe split and refine and add clarity and kind of some discussion to.
That's correct, Brian. We have a lot of dams that we have no information, don't even have the plans of the dams, how they were constructed.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Other inputs on this one from other subgroup members?
I would just echo Brian to basically say some breakdown is needed, you know, whatever, known unknowns. I think we still want to see some bullets on what don't we know. I think that would be helpful to us about. I think there's a number of people that speculate that there's more than the 2,600 dams that have already been discussed, but clearly we already know there's well over 1,000 dams that fit in this category, right? Just from the, you know, the mapping and the info that we've got already.
Sure. Thank you, Evan. Okay, let's move to number 3. Again, this is obviously high level here. In a perfect world, they might all be doing this. Again, depends on size and scope of the operation. I'm sure there's some threshold need for maintaining certain records and monitoring. This might fall into the category sort of need more information, but let me stop there and hear from others on the subgroup.
Well, the one question I'd have here, what do you do with a dam where you can't find the owner?
Yeah.
where you don't know, nobody claims ownership. I know we've got those out there. So that's another policy question. What do you do with those? I mean, if we're going to require permits and we're going to require inspections, what if there's no owner?
Sure. No, thanks, Bill. And I think we can certainly caveat that one here. For the sake of this recommendation, let's focus on a known owner, but leave that on the table as well to further explore. Mario, just quickly, I mean, all dams that are in your system, obviously owners keep records, but it varies depending, again, on size and scope of the operation and other parameters, presumably?
No, they don't, because they are not operating hydroelectric dams. So we don't have the same requirement as FERC does for them to monitor the impoundment level, the discharge through the spillway and things like this. So there is no record keeping by the owners as far as I know.
Forgive my assumption. So yeah, this one will take some discussion, obviously.
These will need some shape, I can assure you. I mean, I've got the dam I'm most concerned about is right on the Huron River. It's a good size. And the only reason I was able to figure out about some things that had been done in the past that we've not done for a really long time was going through old handwritten reports from the 70s. I wasn't even looking for that information. I was looking for something else. So
if there is any information that
we're going to need definition for, or at least to identify legislatively, this needs to be done and the rules need to be promulgated by EGLE, which is the best way to go. Ultimately, to have a stakeholder group work on what's contained in those, in greater detail.
Yeah,
it's like Bill said, is pretty key. How many dams are out there where ownership is unclear? That was one of my inputs to the survey.
That's a great observation and framing it here, Evan. I mean, sort of what's the role of this group? Is it getting down to the detailed language of what it needs to be, or is it simply advancing a recommendation which will require additional work by experts with agency input, and whether it's rules promulgation or what have you? So duly noted.
I'm not sure about the rest of that sentence. Require owners to maintain those things. Is anybody ever going to look at them? Is EGLE supposed to look at them? I think that's something that we might want to address, whether it's today or as we come back for a second pass at these things. What's the purpose and how do we verify?
Okay, great, thank you. Let's keep moving, see what we can get through. We've only got a few minutes left here. Recognizing, while we all looked at a schedule this morning on best case in moving our work forward, this may require, a separate subgroup meeting of the folks here ahead of the November meeting to further refine these, just so you're aware of that.
Mark, I just would like to add that when they say monitoring, is also the use of the instrumentation to assess the stability of the embankments to make sure the dam is safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Really quick. Is there a requirement for owners to register? Let's say there's a transfer of ownership and property or whatever. Is there a requirement for owners of properties that a dam might sit on to register just so it's on record? Do we know that?
What do you mean by register, Brad?
Register, submit the existence of a dam,
Yeah, the ownership of the dam is transferred together with the transfer of the ownership of the parcel where the dam is.
Okay.
So we may have some dams that they have multiple owners, because one parcel is one side of the river is one owner, the other side is a different owner.
What's the disclosure requirement for the sale of the property? Like, you got to disclose if there's a hazardous waste on property. Do you have to disclose that in the title?
I can find out for you, Bill. I don't know the answer.
Okay, let's move here to number 4 and quick discussion about this one. I'm not going to read the whole thing, or just sort of paraphrase. Require owners, significant hazards. ensure the continued safe operation and maintenance, mitigate any hazard presented during a dam incident or emergency should the owner fail to do so. Now, my sense from Mario's presentation, I mean, there is some statutory language that speaks to requirements in this regard. Obviously, it depends on the category of dam and what we're talking about here, but I'll stop there. Questions, comments, inputs from members?
Just one point, and I'm going to go back to Brian's point. One of the other issues that I want to cover at some point in this is our program is designed to protect humans and human developments. We have had incidents in Michigan where we've frankly destroyed tremendous natural resources. I go back to the Lotus Dam up in the northeastern Michigan, where it was, the damage wasn't to humans, it was to a significant trout stream. And so on this point here, you know, if we can, I'd like to be able to look at not just hazards to humans, but hazards to significant natural resources.
Right. Thanks for that, Bill. Yeah, that came up in the plenary too, regards to the discussion that occurred at the last meeting. So duly noted. Other
Bill, that the environmental damage is included in the definition of the high hazard dams.
Is it only limited to high hazard then, it sounds like, Mario?
And significant hazard also.
So I don't think the
Let's take a look at that language.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's plenty of cases where high and significant won't cover it. There's just nothing downstream. I mean, that's Golden Lotus. There was a bridge and no houses anywhere nearby, but it, you know, it caused $2 million worth of damages, public damages. So it's a good one to kind of dig into a little bit further and put some more meat on the bones.
Okay, great. Let's try and get to number 5 here. Require inspection of construction by DSP staff and the design engineer.
You know, I'm curious about, one of the things I put in the survey was getting a little bit of a summary of what's the history of dam failures and failure mode. So is this the biggest problem we have, the 10th biggest problem we have? It sounds like a good practice, but it is certainly a dramatic shift. You know, not that we have a lot of new dams being built, but a dramatic shift in how things are done. I'm all for inspection, but you certainly want to make sure you're getting the bang for your buck. So again, to what extent has dam failure been a design issue as opposed to, you know, failure due to mortality or just the O&M costs outweigh the benefits or whatever?
Okay. And do I interpret this to mean like this is new construction or rehabilitation, I suppose, when you're rehabbing falls under the definition of construction, whatever the case? It's not just dams. I mean, I don't know of many new dams being contemplated.
Right. Yes, I assume it's the reconstruction. And also, I mean, inspection means a different thing to an architect than to an engineer. The architect stops out and just generally says, this looks like what we built, and does some detailed stuff, whereas the engineer typically wants, you know, full-time on site. Those are very different things. And they also imply a very different, if we go back to number 1, you know, level of responsibility on the inspecting agency.
Great, thank you, Evan. In the sake of time, I think we need to pause here. We made it through almost half, a good discussion on those that we have had. And again, I think all of the subgroups will probably experience what we are, and there's simply, it's a lot to ask in a relatively short time frame here. So I suspect we'll be engaging you separately from full task force meetings to continue the discussion, but we'll figure that out. I guess I just want to give you some assurance that we're going to give you ample time to review these and provide the input that's being asked for. So unless there's any final questions, I think we'll adjourn here. Stay tuned. I really appreciate your input. It's been a very good discussion, as limited as it is. Any comments or questions before we depart? Okay, great. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll certainly be in touch.
Okay, thank you.